Okay, so I'm delighted to welcome Marice Cumber today. She's the founder of Accumulate, which is the art school for the homeless. And I'm going to hand over to Marice. Sorry, I should say that Marice is also an accomplished ceramicist. So I'm going to hand over straight to Marice and let her talk away. Marice, welcome.
Right. Hi. Thanks a lot. So, do you want me to talk about both? Do you want me to talk about the Accumulate thing first before the ceramics?
Let's do the Accumulate stuff first,
right?
And then we'll try the ceramics, or the things might just sort of merge in anyway.
Yeah. So, I mean, I talk a little bit about like how I set it up. Is that and what it does?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, Accumulate's the art school for the homeless, and what we do is we provide creative workshops and activities and courses for people who are homeless. And the reason behind that is like we all are very aware about, creativity and well-being, but also when you're doing something which enables you to express yourself and communicate, it becomes very empowering. And that's even more so for people who don't feel they've been given that opportunity or have been denied the means to get to express themselves through those sorts of mediums. So they, whether through education or circumstance. And so what Accumulate does is it puts on, really high level professional training, just like you'd get, say, maybe on a university short course, and opens those up to people who are living in hostels or temporary accommodation. So we don't work with people who are street homeless. And the only reason behind that is just reach and consistency, etc. So we link to all the hostels and work via sort of those avenues. And then these courses and workshops that happen weekly, and they're sort of set up like in terms as if it was, like an academic environment, and it has got the same sense of discipline about it. Like, you commit to coming the whole time. You're part of a team, and all of those other skills. Obviously, the participants take on board, and they create their own sort of like community, and pretty much like an art school. So if anybody's ever been to art school, like, I just remember like the first day I turned up at art school, just thought, oh, there's a whole bunch of weirdos here just like me, and I felt really safe. And that's the same thing that I wanted to happen with Accumulate. So that's why it's like an art school, and the disciplines range. We started with photography, that was what we did back in 2014 when Accumulate set up. But now we do fashion, we've done jewellery, we've done sculpture, we've done ceramics, we've done writing, we've done illustration, we've done, film. So, right across the board, just as you would get in an art school, I suppose. And I think what's very, very unique about Accumulate is it doesn't look about just doing creativity for creativity's sake. It works towards this sort of end goal of whatever that might be, and that end goal is an exhibition, or it could be like we've produced a book, we've produced magazines, we've done fashion shows. So there's this target, and so a collective goal, and so it gives even more purpose. So you can understand that through the action of creativity and coming along to Accumulate, there are all these other sort of really good life skills that are gained, and that's what's brilliant about education. It's not just about what you learn; it's that actually it stays there with you for life, but also you gain other sort of attributes that enable you to maybe navigate life a little bit better. And then we also fundraise for scholarships. So so that people from Accumulate can go on to an access course, which is like equivalent of, say, A levels in art. I'd say it was at that level. Yeah. It's like a it's what you call level 0 course. And so if they do the access course, and if they did want to go on to do a BA or whatever, then they would have the required sort of qualifications. So and the reason we did that was because of fees, because you can say that anybody can go to university, and you can just take out a student loan. But when you're living on benefits, the idea that you're going to be doing that by yourself, do you know what I mean, unsupported, is like a million miles away from what you may have thought that you could have achieved. Even the most determined person, it would be a huge struggle for them. And so we have fundraised for scholarships. So far we've done, I think it's 24 scholarships we've done. Yeah, 24, and 12 people have progressed onto degrees from that. So that's super life-changing, you know. I mean, it's just like incredible. So that's, you know, so we're always looking at, you know, how do we enable somebody to really transition their life? And I suppose that's like one way of it, that they get down the route of education. But obviously, if they just, you know, just sort of say, like, something decides they're going to get up before 9 every day and go to the gym, or do, you know, do something, or, you know, I don't know, whatever that might be, or get in contact with their family, or you know, try and sort of tidy their room that day because they just feel better about themselves, and that is enough of a goal. We don't have to always aim super high. Do you know what I mean? So it's that, like, someone just says, I'm going to get up every morning, I'm going to go for a run around the block because I feel much better about myself, and that's absolutely brilliant for me. So yeah, so that's Accumulate and how it works. And we work in collaboration with a lot of sort of museums and galleries. Like, you know, we have a residency at the Barbican. We're working with Saatchi Gallery, working with Autograph this year. We're going to be working with, you know, the Waterloo Festival in January. So, you know, really good, prestigious collaborations that add value to the project.
Yeah. So how long did it take to? Because originally you started sort of fundraising by selling jams and preserves, right?
People get obsessed about that. Yeah.
Do they?
Yeah, it's a funny story how it's. I've got like I've got no allegiance to like jams or chutneys or whatever. Do you know what I mean? But what actually happened was, the story behind it is actually in about 2010. Yeah, it was 2010. I walked out of a really, really high-powered job. I literally drove to work one day and I was absolutely broken and empty and had nothing left inside of me and just couldn't carry on. And I sort of like, you know...
What were you doing then?
I was in sort of senior management for a university.
Okay.
So, you know, and a lot of pressure and an absolutely horrendous boss that had actually no sense of reality. I don't think that her behaviour was, well, I mean, it was wrong then, but now I think we're so much more aware of bullying in the workplace that, you know, it would have been maybe, I'm not to say maybe easier, but, you know, it's you're just compromised every which way you turned. And I just knew that I was failing. Do you know what I mean? I was just empty at the end of it. You know, everything was awful because of the amount of pressure I was being put under from my work position. And I literally sort of drove home that day, and for about a year I lay on the sofa and thought, this is it, it's the end of my journey, really. Do you know what I mean? Like, I had everything. I had a really high power position, I had this, I had that, and like, you know, it's going to be really odd for somebody. I just didn't want to be at that level anymore. You know, you're at that level and all of a sudden you say, oh, I'll go back and I'll be a lecturer. Do you know what I mean? Like, being from like, you know, really high, you know, what the hell? Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, she's a bit of a risk. But also there's a whole lot of other things that I thought about in that year, and one of them was about how much I hadn't been true to my ideals.
Right.
And I went into education originally. Like, I went after actually having had a business for about 12 years or so. And I went in there to really sort of do what might be termed now as social good. Like, I really wanted to pass on knowledge and support others and have impact and purpose. And when you're at such a senior level, you don't feel that at all. I just remember being in one of their sort of business planning meetings, and I thought, shit, you know what, we could be talking about cheese sandwiches here, because you know, these are people, these are students, they've invested their lives, they've made a choice to come to this university or whatever, and we're just talking about them as if they're absolute fodder, you know. And I just knew I was out of it. And so in that year I sort of thought about, you know, what was important to me. And it was really about, you know, making that impact, really using my skills and knowledge to support others to advance in their lives. You know, the core about why anybody goes into education, you know, and you know, and just being just much more human. You know what? I'd lost all humanness. I was just like bitch boss from hell. I had 11 people reporting to me, and because I was being treated in such a bad way, I was treating them, and I just thought, you know what? I am out of this. And so I don't even know how I even heard about it, but there was they were trying to set up a festival in my local area. And I think I might have seen it on Facebook or something, I don't know, whatever. So I went along to this meeting, and all of a sudden, you know, they tried to set up this festival, and I just said, yeah, this is just perfect for me. You know what I mean? It's community, it's local, it uses all my management skills. And so I helped to set up, you know, the festival. It was great. And, you know, became a director of it, of course. You know, I can't keep my big mouth shut. And, you know,
was this the Crouch End one?
Yeah, it's the Crouch End.
Yeah, it's Crouch End. Yeah,
right.
Okay.
And then in Crouch End, which is, if you don't know, it's just full of like coffee shops and estate agents and hairdressers and sort of, you know, it's quite sort of, I suppose, affluential or you know, whatever, or, you know, aspirational, whatever.
Yeah.
There's a hostel, which I didn't even like recognize as a hostel. Like, I just used to walk past it every day and didn't even like clock what it was, you know. And they actually got in contact with the festival, and I was dealing with that, and they sort of said, oh, hi, we're from the YMCA hostel, you know, maybe we could have a chat. And so I went across to have a discussion with them, and that's literally how Accumulate started. They wanted to do something creative. They had no like resources to do it or anything, and I said, okay, we'll do some creative workshops. And I sort of talked to some of the residents, and I looked at this group, and I thought to myself, I've got a fundraiser's dream. I've got unemployed, mental health issues, homeless, lack of education, like what you call NEETs, you're not in education, employment training, high ethnic minority. I mean, these are all like huge tick boxes if you're going to go in for funding. And I thought, you know what, if I do that, that's so wrong, because I'm not going to help it if I just go and get some money in and say, all right, let's do some workshops. Because really, where's the learning in that?
Where's the learning? Yeah.
Yeah. So I sort of said to this group, I said, okay, we're going to do some creative workshops. I don't know what they're going to be, but whatever it is and whatever's produced will be at the Crouch End Festival, and we will have an exhibition, and it will be there because I'm the director of the festival, and so you just got in. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's always good to know somebody, isn't it? And then I said, right, but we're going to make our own money, because there's no use if this money just comes in and we start doing it, because you're not going to know what the struggle is. And I said, we're going to have to do something which is going to be low cost, which appeals to everybody, and which we can sell at the Christmas, you know, the Crouch End Festival Christmas craft fair. And so that idea came up, you know, which isn't like, you know, lots of people are doing it, which is about, you know, gathering surplus fruit and veg and, you know, making it into preserves. And so I did this like call out on the Crouch End, I don't know, whatever it was, Crouch End Society, whatever it is, on Facebook. Just said, look, you know, if you've got any surplus fruit from your allotments or gardens, if you've got any empty jam jars, this is what I'm going to do with it. Bring it round to my house. And I thought I'd get maybe at the end of the month, maybe 2 carrier bags. I mean, honestly, there was mountains
Mountains
of
that. Oh wow!
People really, you know, because it just hooked into the fact that I was taking a surplus. It was going to be really good, purposeful. Not only was I reducing, like, you know, waste in that way, like food waste, I was giving people from the hostel something to do. So they were going to be making the jams and preserves with us, and then we were going to sell them, and the money raised from that is going to provide education, really.
Yeah.
So it was a real homegrown, and it was education in their area for people that live in their area but actually don't feel connected, you know, because they live in a hostel or whatever. And so that's how it started. So so that's how we made the money for the first few years. And it was a great tagline. I called it "Preserves with a Purpose," which I just think was a great tagline.
Brilliant.
Anyway, and we did sell a lot of jams, but you know, I mean, we had some great flavors and everything, but you're never going to get rich from jams and chutneys. Let me just tell you that, right? You know, it's not really going to roll the money in, but
it gives you sort of thin base to start with.
Well, a thin base. No,
thin base of cash. No, not even that.
No, I mean, it was cash, right? It was money that came in, and it's actually what I did was actually taught about enterprise. It taught that, you know, if you want to do something, you can get off your ass and you can do it yourself. And that's what it was. We we started from the church kitchen, and there was a couple of us making it. I mean, it was, I don't know, 3 or 4 of the hostel residents. It's very hard to get people motivated when they've been in an environment where there is no incentive to be motivated. I mean, it's the most boring, draining environment, and so it's a real challenge. But the ones that did come on board, they were involved in something, and they saw what happened to that involvement. It turned into a return, and I suppose that there's a sort of a lesson in there. But yeah, you don't get rich from it, I tell you that. But it was enough. It was enough for the first couple of years. We were only working with one hostel originally, and now we're working with 26. So it's a very different beast.
So when you sort of moved into independent fundraising, or fundraising as a means of getting your independence. I mean, how did you find all that? I mean, was that a tough ask, and is it still a tough ask?
It's much tougher now, right? But because of the environment that we're in, it's like really tough out there. But I was part of my job in the university was fundraising.
Yeah.
So I knew how to write a bid, and I knew, so I had a lot of those skills on board, which were a really huge asset. So even though when I look back and I think about, the really high powered job, it was only shit the last year or so. But when I look back on all of that, it was all a training ground for what I did later. Do you know what I mean? Everything serves a purpose in the end. Yeah. So, and you write those bids, and they're a lot of work, and sometimes you're successful, which is brilliant, and sometimes it's a hell of a lot of work and you're not successful. And the more money that you're bidding for, the more work it is, the more time it takes, and the bigger the disappointment. So it's a very, you've really got to try and, I would say to anybody, going down that route, is to actually find that balance, because you could be applying for 6 grants at one time, and you may only get 1. And they do say, for every 8 grants you put in, you may be successful to get 1. So it's a challenge. I mean, we were particularly successful, I would say, but that's also because of, and also my board. I've got very good fundraisers on my board, and I sort of knew what I was doing. Whereas I think it is. There is a lot to happen to make bids accessible to all. Because if you go in for certain organisations, if you try and write their bid, and within a certain number of words they're asking for, and to get across all the key objectives that they need, if you have not had an education in that, you will struggle, really big time struggle. So they are elitist. Because you've got to know that language in order to even just start. Do you know what I mean? You've got to understand, how to put the words in, how to pepper it, the keywords, you've got to, all of that sort of stuff. And sometimes you've got to get something which is like huge. You're going to get down to like 400 words. It's a nightmare. So we were particularly fortunate, but now I think it's a very different, it's a very different landscape out there. There's a lot less money. Yeah. And there's a lot of organisations that need the money now. So it's very different.
So, like, you've expanded. You've got how many hostels now? What, 26 that you're working with now. I mean, when you're going into, you're looking at a hostel that you sort of want to work with. What is it that's either with the sort of the hostel that they're looking for the the sort of the young people in there that attracts them to you? What's the kind of like the vibe and the kind of ethos that's attracting them?
I think the one thing which is really interesting, and I've looked at it, I think is the fact that we don't actually do the workshops in the hostels, bizarrely, because you do the workshop in the hostel, it's saying this is taking place because you are homeless and in a hostel. It's got that whole vibe about it. But you're doing the workshop at the Tate or Somerset House or whatever, it's a different thing. you know, I think also the fact that there's the scholarships that people can really progress their lives. That's really important. You know, the hostels also need results. They need to say they've got people, you know, not sitting around all day. Boredom is a dangerous thing, right? Really dangerous thing. So we're providing something which takes away the boredom, you know, is really good for well-being. It gets people out of the hostel, out of their rooms. We cover their travel, we cover their food. They've got excellent tutors. You know, I mean, like we're offering a lot, and we're not just doing, you know, a few scraps of A4 and some felt pens. You know what I mean? It's like this year, I think, well, this term, we're doing photography based on the archives of the Association of Black Photographers. We're going to be doing ceramics, and we're going to be doing a sculpture project based on at the Barbican based on the Noguchi exhibition. So it's like, you know, these are like quality sort of stuff, you know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
And the way it's been planned is I sort of said to myself, like, if my kids were going to go on an art course, what would I want that to look like? And I come from the university background, so I'm not thinking, do you know what I mean? That's how my head is thinking, you know, what they're going to get. So for the hostels, it's, you know, they've got people there that are interested in the arts, that can't afford to go on, you know, a local course. It's no longer free if you're unemployed. In my time, you know, I studied ceramics at Magdalen College. It was free because I was unemployed, but it's no longer like that. And when you're living on like no money, the idea that you're going to be putting in, you know, 20 quid of your money to education to go on a course, you're just not going to do it.
Not going to do it. Yeah.
You're seriously not going to do it. So this is a way of actually us providing that resource at no cost to the hostel.
Yeah. So you've mentioned photography a couple of times. I think that was what you kind of started with, and it's still a very big theme, you know, in what you do. And I was looking at some of the photos that, you know, that the students have taken, which are like kind of phenomenal. I mean, photography, I think, is a great way, isn't it, of getting people interested. What, you know, are the students really kind of responding to that? Is that one of your big?
It's interesting because, like, when I did my first shout out, like when I sold all the jams and chutneys and I had a few hundred quid in the bank, and I said, right, okay, we're going to start to do the workshops. And I mean, this is like literally, we're talking 7 years ago, whatever. It's very different now. I think we've become a much more conscious society than we were then. But I did a call out on Facebook, and I said, okay, you know, it's the Crouch End Creatives group. I said, okay, this is what we're going to do. Who wants, you know, who'd be interested in doing some workshops at this our local hostel in our area? Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, it's not, I'm not asking you to go to Birmingham. It's literally sort of down the road. And I said it could be anything. It could be mosaic. It could be, I don't know, embroidery. It could be, you know, it could be woodwork. I didn't care what it was. My background's in design, so it's like not, you know, whatever. Well, that, you know, my business was in design, but my actual background was in fine art. But anyway, so but like, I wasn't going to teach it because I wasn't, you know, that was not what I wanted to be doing, sort of thing. And only one person came back of all of that, and that one person is called Neil Martinson, and he's a photographer. And he said, yeah, I'd love to do that. Just one person. I just thought, photography. Oh, I don't know jack shit about photography. Do you know what I mean? Like, honestly. And he really connected with it because he'd been really instrumental in the community creative action in Dalston. So he's got a really fantastic background in community art, etc.
Right.
So along he comes, and, you know, we decided we were going to turn the canteen into a studio. We had like one camera, which was his, one set of lights, which was his, and a sheet for a backdrop, which we just, like, you know, hung up from the lighting pole with a couple of bulldog clips. Like, if you saw Accumulate now, the amount of kit that we bring along, you think, you know, hello, you know, Rankin's come. You know what I mean? But literally one camera, one set of lights, and one backdrop. Right, that was it, right? And what I witnessed was this real thing of empowerment. Like, you know, we did like portrait shots, right? So, you know, Neil was helping a participant, you know, how do you frame it, you know, how do you get it to be in focus? So for the person who was taking the photograph, they felt really empowered. They they'd created something. You know, they had been taught to create something. And the person who's having their photograph taken, they felt really cool because they felt they were the center of attention. And they were having their photograph taken. So what I witnessed was really fantastic. It was a real thing, and they shared it. They took a photo of their mate or whatever, and they took the photo, and then the mate would come around and have a look. They go, "Wow, that's great!" And if it was shit, they could just delete it and do it again. And they were being supported by somebody who was just so brilliant in handing over that information, like a real sort of fatherly type of figure. It was just fantastic, right? And I just thought, this is great. You know, I just saw real value being created through this, you know, one-off photography workshop in the canteen, people walking in and out. They were sort of saying, "Oh, what's going on here?" We were saying, "We're doing a portrait workshop. Want to take part?" They go, "Yeah, I'm just going to go upstairs and get changed." You know, just nicely for it. You know what I mean? It was brilliant. So that's really why we started with photography. No other reason. If somebody come along and said they're going to be doing, I don't know, lino printing or something, we'd have been doing a lot. It was literally by chance.
Just
so
by
we did
chance,
photography. We did photography for a few years, and it was great. People felt really, you know, you got a bit of sexy, you know. Then we all had, you know, we've got enough cameras for everybody, so everybody felt like really sort of had a bit of sexy kit around their neck. You know what I mean? They had a camera. They were like paparazzi. You know what I mean? And they loved it. So, you know, we did a lot of work on with photography. You know, and now we're going back to it. I mean, I haven't done it for a couple of years just because we've had so much going on. And then in like 2020, last year, we finished producing the Book of Homelessness, which is like a huge graphic novel. So, you know, our energies have been elsewhere, but we're going to go back to it this term and hopefully have an exhibition in January for the work that's produced.
With the work that they're producing, are they? Do you feel that there are kind of themes that you know, either kind of in their life that they are, you know, trying to kind of represent through their art, whether that be photography or any of the other sort of sort of things that you're getting them to.
That's a really interesting question, because we get approached. Accumulate gets approached a lot by people who want to do something creative about the Accumulate participants, about homelessness in particular. And I always say no, right? So I've never said, take photographs of your environment, or, you know, this is based on why you became homeless or anything like that. And the reason behind that, I thought to myself, like, if I went along to a printmaking class, and, you know, there's a lot of other women my age, they would say, look, we really want you all, I mean, and we just turned up, right? And it's just by coincidence, they're all women of a certain age. And they said, look, you know, what we'd really like to talk about is, you know, I don't know, postnatal depression or some shit. Do you know what I mean? It's like, why would you all want to talk to us about that? Because we're women of a certain age, or like, I don't know, what do you do with your lives once your kids are grown up? I mean, you're just making an assumption that is what I want to be creative about. And so I've always had it as a rule, and I've had it a rule with actually all my trainers. We don't ask them about their shit because they're not asking us about our shit. Do you know what I mean? So they've never because they don't want to. Who wants to say, I'm going to advertise my worst thing, you know, maybe something which is I'm not so proud of. Like, why would you want to be that? I mean, you know, you've got to go through a lot to be that open about that sort of stuff. So no, they don't choose to do that when we're doing a project. You know, we've done fashion, we've done, you know, everything. I've never sort of said this is like about being on the street, or, you know, about addiction or anything like that. The only time was with the Book of Homelessness, and that was a huge project. And the Book of Homelessness was set up because there isn't a graphic novel that I was aware of, or I am aware of, that has been created by people who are homeless about their own lives. What you may get, just as you may get in photography, or may get in film, or you may get in, you know, illustration, is people who are not homeless making art or creating dialogue about people who are homeless. So where does the credit go? And whose story is this exactly here? Do you know what I mean? Like, if I was to go, you know, to actually sort of say, I'm going to make art about somebody else's deprivation, who's the winner? Do you know
Or
what I mean?
experience, yeah, yeah.
And so so when the plan came about for the Book of Homelessness, I said, right, this is their story. They're going to write it, and they're going to draw it. You know, I had excellent tutors, but I said, this is how it is. It's about ownership. It's their story. They own it. They can do it. And so when we started off on the project, that was very hard to start off with, and I had a whole group of new people to say, this is what I want you to do, right? And I said, it's called the Book of Homelessness, but you don't have to draw or write about being homeless.
Yeah.
If you want to write about or draw about what you had for breakfast, that is absolutely fine by me. As you know, this is your choice. It's called the Book of Homelessness because Accumulate is an art school for the homeless. So it's created by you. It's your story, but you can talk about, as I said, what football team you support or whatever. It's your, whatever story you want to be in this book, you can create. And so that was really interesting because, you know, it took a long time. I'd say we did a lot of work on the project. Like we had to get people to understand about, you know, drawing in sequence, you know, understand, you know, we did a lot of literature studies. It was really, you know, they were reading poems out and like, what does this mean and all this sort of stuff.
Fantastic.
And it took about 6 weeks until we got them to, then they actually really did start, and they absolutely poured their hearts out because they were in it together, you know, and they were, it's like, okay, if you're doing it, I'm doing it. Because I don't want to be the one that's writing about my breakfast and you're writing about how you had to flee a country because you had fear of being tortured. Do you know what I mean? Like, where does that come from? So everybody wrote and produced such personal and such raw work because they wanted to, they were part of a project. They didn't want to disappoint themselves. They didn't want to disappoint other people. You know what I mean? They were on this journey together. And they were so proud that their story was being heard, the real story, not what somebody else had decided their story was and edited it. It was purely their story. So that's the only time when I have asked or suggested or tried to enable them to talk about their own lives. And, you know, I haven't. And that's it. That's the only time. And, you know, unless we do a project like that again, it won't happen.
I mean, that's like sort of proper, you know, empowerment. You know, to the individuals. You know, which can be, you know, I guess at the same time scary, and also very very kind of, you know, sort of liberating once the idea, you know, is then it's like, okay, I haven't got any. I'm not being told what to do here. I can do it. I can tell my experience and my story.
Yeah, they made that choice. They could have written about their breakfast. I really didn't care. I just wanted them to be part of this book. And, you know, like for anybody to have a book published, it's amazing. Do you know what I mean? And they've got their names in their books, their photographs are in their book. It's like sold all over the world. You know, it's like fantastic. So, you know, they feel great to be part of it. And it is raw and it is tough. But there was a lot of there was so much support in that room for everybody. Do you know what I mean? From the tutors, but also between the participants. They sort of sat on their own little tables. They worked together. You know, they just were really, I don't know, they really cared for each other, that everybody would get to where they needed to be. You know, so yeah, it wasn't a super empowering project for certain. You know, they were just so proud to be part of it.
I wonder if that I mean, he's clearly sort of built a, you know, a spirit of sort of community, but also kind of, I guess, sort of recognizing, you know, if somebody is struggling to either, you know, kind of take part, or is, you know, is unsure, and is like, you know, there's a kind of like I don't know, but perhaps a kind of acknowledgement and or sort of understanding that that's what other people might be going through as well. And it's like, I understand. It's like that kind of like almost like kind of group empathy that sort of exists, which is really powerful as well.
Yeah, there was a lot of that, and everybody's stories. You know, we had stories of, you know, homophobic abuse, we had, you know, domestic abuse, we had torture. I mean, like, we had drugs, we had the whole lot going on in this book.
Yeah.
I think what was interesting for external people who purchased the book was really reading these stories from the people whose stories they were. Do you know what I mean? They understood that homelessness is not because you're an alkie or a drug addict. Do you know what I mean? You might have got to that stage because, you know, of something that happened prior. But I think it really made people aware. You know, we had stories of people being like thrown out. You know, there'd been like violence in their house, the stepfather throwing them out, and the mother being too scared to let them back in the house. And this guy then turned to heroin. Well, you know, he was like 12 years old, 13 years old. It's like, this is what happens, you know, this is society and this is life. So it was a real eye-opener for everybody involved in that project. And I was, you know, obviously super involved in it. And obviously, you know, it was, I wasn't reading it when I was going through it, you know, the project, because I was so, okay, we've got to get this much, how many pages, the print quotes, the design, what's the timeline, you know, my head was all over what colour inside, you know, paper we're going to use. I mean, my head was all over that. And only afterwards, and it's printed, it took, you know, I went back to it like a couple of months later, and I actually did read it, and I read it, you know, so I was reading it anew, because I wasn't reading it when I was with the, you know, I was when like, you were with them, exactly. I was just like getting the work there, making sure there was no spelling mistakes before it went to the designer.
It's a very kind of practical things to get it out.
Get involved with it. So it's, and like we're now about to start a project with Shelter, which is like amazing. And I had a chat with the guy from Shelter, and you know, he said, "Oh, this is, you know, he bought the book, and he, you know, was talking, and he showed me, oh yeah, I love this book," and I could see he'd had all these different bookmarks in the book. You know, he'd read it, and there were so many cases in there that he thought was so sort of relevant. So, you know, it's been a great project,
What did you notice about, or what really sort of struck you about the creativity that kind of exists in the, you know, in the students, you know, either it's, you know, it's very kind of out there, or it has to be pulled out, or kind of like encouraged to come out?
So you've got some people who are like off the scale creative, like off the scale talented, and you've got other people who maybe not so. And I've always said, like when it came to the book of homelessness, we had somebody say, I don't know how to draw, I can't do this. They still want to be there, but they just said, I can't draw. And you've got other people doing these fantastic, you know, illustrations, whatever. And, you know, eventually they all did draw and they all did write or whatever. And some people, they took photographs, decided to do it differently. You know, that was absolutely fine, whatever. But, and I've always said, like, I don't even care if somebody comes along and they just want to sit there for 2 hours because they feel safe and they just want to be in a different place. Like, I don't give a shit. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, it's got them out of the hostel. Maybe it's got them away from a negative situation. They just want to sit there for 2 hours and not do anything. Fine by me. But, you know, through this sort of energy that's in the group and people just saying, look, I can't really draw, but like, look, you know, why don't you try? You know, they're all supporting each other. So even on recent projects, that the last project we did in the summer, we did a project actually which was with Design and Art Direction, who are a big sort of trade body for the advertising industry. And we took one of their briefs, which was about Lego, and we gave it to the participants. And they had to make sort of social media campaigns using the Lego, you know. And it was just great, you know, it was just fun stuff. Some of it was really brilliant. They had music, they had words, they had like the models, they had a bit of slow-mo, you know, sort of animation, you know, all that sort of stuff. Some of them, they just took an image. It was like fine, because what everyone was happy about for each other was that they produced something, you know, and they got some sort of adoration from other people. So they felt really good about what they did. So, you know, I don't care. We have got, you know, having said all of that, you know, there's one individual that's been with us since 2020, so just over a year. I mean, he's off the scale creative. He's now getting like paid work to do illustration and stuff, you know, and it's just brilliant. He's flying. He is flying, you know. So you know, that's brilliant.
That's incredible, isn't it? Yeah.
No, he's so that's great. And you've got other people less so, but you know, everybody gets to where they need to be, and they are supported.
I guess they go at different paces as well, don't they? And they need the right environment and a kind of group
at the right stage in their life.
Totally.
You know, it's not everybody, you know, and you know, with this one guy, when we went to the last showcase, he spoke about his journey from being like, you know, a drug addict and a shoplifter and going in and out of prison to now being, you know, a student at university and getting paid illustration work and, you know, all this sort of stuff. And, you know, one person turned around to me and he's just said, you know, I mean, I've been doing this project for like sort of 6-7 years. He said, like, even that, if that is just the only story that you've got after 7 years, he said, that is still like absolutely amazing, because you know, to change somebody's life, that they are now independent of all of that, like substance free, on a path with education, self-employed as an illustrator, you know, out of prison, you know, no, you know, no substances, whatever, you know, wears really lovely like branded clothes. I keep saying, God bloody hell, look at you today. Do you know what I mean? Like, because he's like so proud that he can go out and afford like, you know, brilliant, lovely sneakers and his smart iPhone and everything like that. Good luck to him. But actually, if it's just that one person, that's enough. You don't have to change the world. You can, you know, if you change one person.
Absolutely, totally, I mean, and it's also, I mean, you know, aside from the, you know, the qualifications, you know, the academic sort of qualification, the you know, these other sort of life skills that you know, you're giving them, you know, understanding about empowerment and you know, the you know, their own decision making and you know, how to work in groups. You know, collaboration. They're all, I mean, these are like nowadays. I mean, these are just so important. I mean, you know, I think, you know, back in the day, you know, academic qualifications was and skills was everything, wasn't it? You know, that was what kind of got you placed. I think that it's still important for certain things, but it's less so. These other kind of skills that what you're doing is teaching people is incredible. Really, I think important.
I mean, you know, it's not like everybody's going to come through the scheme is going to come out and you know, everything's going to be resolved, because there's a whole load of stuff, and we're only part of that, you know. And I've always you know, advocated that, you know, people are in certain situations because of certain things happening in their lives, and just because I provide some like nice arts shit, like some workshops, it's not going to change all that other stuff. And you know, it teaches skills and all that sort of, you know, and gives them knowledge and you know, enables them to self-manage, but there's so much more work that needs to be done. You know, and unfortunately, you know, society is like it is and resources are like they are, and you know, I just think, you know, there is a need for proper sort of therapy and support for people. You know, people have gone through terrible stuff in their lives and they've been left alone to try and deal with it, and it's, you know, it's a huge mountain and it's impacted and it's awful. You know, so it's great that you've got some creative workshops. It's great that, you know, people come through the Accumulate work scheme and we have such incredible results, but what about all the people that just don't get to us?
Don't get to you.
You know, and not that we are the solution at all. Like, you know, we can only, you know, only a certain percentage of people that come through our projects will actually get to, you know, and be able to super change their lives, you know. And I don't, you know, so that we've got people that have been with us and, you know, that we keep them going every single week and they have something to look forward to, but they're still in the hostel and they're still long-term unemployed, you know, but at least they've got something with us. But what about everybody else?
Yeah, that's very true.
It's like huge, you know, it's huge. And we're never going to make those changes unless we resource it properly and we accept that we actually need to do more. You know.
Now, moving on to onto your ceramics.
God, I got really depressing at the end, didn't I?
No, not at all. No, I think no, it's a really powerful story. What you know what you're doing. But you're absolutely right. It's not all. It's not all perfect. You can only do what you can do. There's a whole load of other stuff that needs to happen as well. So we have left on a positive now. So your ceramics. Tell us about. We've got about sort of 10, 15 minutes or so. But
it's a bit of an odd story. I started doing ceramics in my 20s or so, and got my work into galleries, and then I actually opened up a sort of ceramic type business, but it was much more commercial. And I stopped doing my own sort of hand built, more personal work, because sort of just life took over. I had a business, a ceramics business, whatever. Then I went into education, and obviously I rose up the levels there, and then then I did accumulate, and there was always nagging at me. And we did an accumulate exhibition, and it must have been 2017, 2018, and a very, very old friend came up to me, and the exhibition was at the Guardian. I mean, we're not we're punching big there, do you know what I mean? So, and he goes, "Oh, Marice, this is all very well. This is all very well." He said, "But when are you going to get back to your ceramics?" And it was like a dagger to my heart. I just said, "Look, we're at the Guardian. Do you know what I mean? We've got we're selling the work. We've got scholarships. It's all glitz. We've had masses of press." And then the real thing that pained me was somebody said to me, "This is all like a substitute,
This is all very good, yeah.
Yes, it's all very good. It's all very good." But and it was literally like a stab to my heart. And the next day, I went and got a studio back. And I was just like, what's my problem? I've got time now. I've got the ability to sort of get some space. I can afford to get a. It's just it's sort of like a community studio. It was not like I had my own studio. So, and I think I could go there 15 hours a week, and it just was absolutely perfect. Anyway, so I went back there, and and I started making. And as I got into the studio, this big community studio, and I started getting making and my work, and it was all I can describe it as was I was like a barren well that was being filled up with water, because I just felt so completely good, just completely good. And so I started making work, and it was very personal work. And when I sort of spoke about, when we asked people about, why they're homeless, and I never asked about why they're homeless or anything like that. But when it came to me making my personal ceramics, I thought I'm putting all the shit out there. Do you know what I mean? I've got so much shit in my life that I've been through. And I started to, I wouldn't say decorate, but they were statements that I would be putting onto these pieces. And those statements are really from, remember I spoke about leaving work and sort of laying on the sofa for a year. Yeah. And in that year, I filled up these notebooks with all of my crazy thoughts about life and, what happened and all that shit. So I had source material, honestly, it was like a dream. So I keep taking these statements out of these notebooks, and I'd be writing them on these very big oversized vessels, and that so I was doing that, and then and it was great. And then the living room table was getting fuller and fuller, and people kept saying to me, "Oh, your work's really great, you should really go to gallery." And I said, I'm not doing that, because they're going to look at me, a woman of a certain age. I've got no track record. Do you know what I mean? I haven't been in a gallery for 30 odd years. Who am I? And I'm not prepared to put myself through that and get rejected. I'm not even doing it to be in a gallery space. I'm doing it because I really super need to do it, and it fulfills me. It's the only way I could explain it. Yeah. So I sort of carried on making, and then at the studios, and it was great. They were works. One side they say things like, I don't know, alone in the playground, and the other side would say still here. It was so sad. Another one would sort of say, you are a good mother, and the other side would say valueless. They're all things that I really felt about myself. And as I was at the studio, you'd get all these women, oh my, passing my time, oh my god, and whatever. So I did a sort of a show. They did a craft fairy sort of thing at this at the studios, and this woman, which is people are sort of selling mugs for £5 or whatever, and there's me with vessels saying things like, I don't know, you know, I don't know what they sort of said. Oh, I wanted to be a rock and roll star. It never happened. You know, all this sort of stuff. There's like something next to me is selling like, you know, a mug for £5 with a bit of brown glaze on it. I stood out like a sore thumb, like weirdo. Anyway, so the first time I did it, and this woman walked past, and she said, "Oh my God, I really love your work." She said, and she sort of took some photos, and she just said, "You know, I've really connected with her. I absolutely understand it." And she gave me her card. And it was an art consultant, like literally, what a dream job. She buys art for other people's houses, like off the scale.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she kept track of me. And the following year, she came back and she bought some of my work. And she said, I've been thinking about it all year. And then she said, you know what, why don't, you know, I'm going to, and she's, you know, big. And she said, I'm going to do the London Art Fair. And I'd like to represent you. And she said, you know, I'm going to show your work, right? And I was like, bloody hell, mate, do you know what I mean? Wow. It's like, I'm going to do a London Art Fair. I'm like, nobody knows who I am, right? And it was all digital, because of course it was in January, it was all online. So she took my work and immediately got selected as one of the key works of the exhibition. It's like, what the fuck's going on? Yeah, and we did a sellout show. All the work sold. So it's like, hello. So yeah.
That's amazing.
It was a really, I mean, somebody bought 9 pieces. It's like bonkers. Because they're sort of like really raw. Do you know what I mean? They sort of say things like, you know, all that sort of rubbish, like, you know, what you might never say. That I think the thing was that I didn't care. You know, I didn't care that I said it, that my life is sometimes shit and I'm desperate and I'm alone and I'm, you know, I've got these terrible feelings. We all have them, you know what I mean? And I just thought, like, I've been through it, super been through it. And I don't care, like, because I'm proud that I went through it, because I wouldn't be where I am today if I hadn't gone through that shit. So yeah, so that's the story. So that, you know, so so I've and I'm having an exhibition end this month. I've got 2 more exhibitions. I've got another exhibition next year. So it's like
incredible.
I know. Who'd have thought that? I mean, that literally, it's just because somebody walked past me. Next, you know, I would never have happened.
No, carry on.
Yeah, no, it was quite funny, because the living room table, as I said, was getting fuller and fuller. So I said to the husband, I said, look, we're just going to have to give these away. Could you imagine? So, yeah,
it's kind of like what you were saying there, that, you know, that you know, your work is about, you know, what you know, it's very kind of honest. It's again, it's sort of raw. It's what you've experienced. You know, it's like if you're going through some shit, then somebody else will be, and you know, everybody's got their own sort of levels of shit they have to kind of deal with. So you're providing that kind of like relatable response, aren't you, to it? That obviously for that collector that's coming past, that just resonates. It's like, okay, this.
I think exactly right. You know, like you could have, you know, I don't know, if you think about all of those artworks or posters that sort of say, oh, I don't know, tomorrow's a new day. So, you know, it's not saying that. It's sort of saying, like, this is my life. It's shit at the moment, right?
Yeah.
But what was funny was the person who actually bought 9. What happened with her was exactly what you're saying. So she bought the Good Mother cup, which said, you know, you are a good mother. On the other side, it said valueless, right? And she bought it, and she's a big collector. And so my consultant delivered the pot to her, and they opened it all up, and this woman just cried, because obviously they'd only seen it like online and it's all digital. And then she had this piece, and then she sort of said to Louisa, who's my consultant, she said, well, what else is there? So Louisa says, I've got another 8 pieces, you know, from the show. She says, right, I'll buy them all. Because
jeez.
Which is bonkers. But I think it's because you just, it's like you said, you know, it's honest, it's raw, it's telling it how it is. You know, it's sort of super shit. Hold on, I'm just gonna change my plugs. I've got low battery. Wait a minute.
Okay, no problem. I really do think people are looking for that. I think that's speaking to a lot of people these days. You know, in lots of parts of the arts. You know, with music as well. It's a big kind of thing in music as well. You know, artists work that people can relate to with what they're saying with their lyrics, or kind of like how people kind of interpret it. I think you're absolutely right.
I think it's like, you know, I think now especially people are very aware that like not everything in life is great.
It's great,
for everybody.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, I think the fact that I'm honest, the fact that I'm not afraid to say it, it's because I think going through it all, even though I was writing it all down in those little notebooks, it would have been very difficult. It would have been therapy at that time for me to start making that sort of work. Whereas I think now it is still therapy, but it's also, I am proud to say that this is all part of me. Just me, and I'm happy to share that. And I really don't care. I really don't care. You know what I mean? Like I've lived my life, and this is what's happened out of my life. And you know, I've used it to some good, and also, you know, and I also think that some of that shit that I have inside me meant that I have wanted to do something impactful. Do you know what I mean? Like I relate to, I mean, when I had that awful year off, I was so low, literally so low, and so not very far away from some of the people that I'm dealing with, you know, and it really made me humble and it made me relate, because I felt that desperation totally.
Yeah.
So, you know, so good things come out of shit sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, you know, I don't think I'd be here today. Like sometimes, you know, okay, it might look a bit rosy, like, whoa, you know what I mean? She's got the art thing going on. She's got Accumulate, you know, that's all like big and on flash. Whoa, do you know what I mean? Like, get her, do you know what I mean? But I have come through shit to get to that. Do you know what I mean? And so, you know, and I'm proud of it. You know, I'm not afraid to say that I'm proud of it, because I've been through some really tough times. But I suppose also that I'm proud of that means that other people don't have to deny their feelings either. You know what I mean? It says that this is my reality. Oh, it's heavy, isn't it? Bloody hell.
Heavy stuff.
Good. I've got some validation. Oh, I feel better today.
Yes. She's totally inspiring me.
Hang on a second. I'm just going to unmute you. How do I unmute?
I have to do it.
Oh, yeah, she has to do it. Anyway.
Oh, you can't hear me.
Go on.
I was just saying it's totally inspiring.
Oh, thank you.
I'm loving it.
Oh, that's good. Thank you. So, look, well, you know, I'm not here to be sort of, I don't know, the next sort of Michaela Cole, but like, couldn't we all just be that? But
absolutely,
like, if it's given you some sort of sense of inspiration, or you feel better than I feel good for that.
Job done. That's brilliant. Brilliant. Marice, thank you so much. That's been inspirational. Honestly, it's been wonderful to have a chat anyway. And
thank you.
You know, congratulations on you know, on the work you're doing. I think you know, both with Accumulate and your ceramics. I think it's phenomenal what you're doing.
Thank you. You're going to make me cry, aren't you? You did that on purpose. She's
I did. It's tried and tested.
Oh, thank you so much.
Not
thanks
at all.
Lot, yeah, thanks for giving me this opportunity. I always feel super flattered, and thanks to her next door for giving me the validation. All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, look, you have a good Sunday.
She's outside painting. I think you're inspiring to do some more as well. So it's all good.
Oh, fantastic! Not painting walls or painting her artwork.
Painting artwork.
Oh, go for
painting
it.
artwork.
For it.
Yeah.
Okay, lovely. All right, then. Thanks a lot. Then.
All right. Take care, Marice.
Right.
See you now. Bye. Bye.